Yes, I was born here too many years ago. My father was actually the fourth doctor in Kona. The first doctor, Dr. McQueen, came in 1854, and my father came in 1929 from China. His father was English, mother German, Dutch, Swiss. He finished his internship at Queen's Hospital in Honolulu, where he met my mother. She was a private nurse to the Princess Abigail Campbell Kavananakoa, and she raised the, well, there's only one of the four left. No, two of them, the Marquesa Marignoli and the Princess Abigail Kavananakoa, as children. Anyway, her father, my mother's father, came from England. My mother's mother, you wouldn't know it by looking at me, it was pure Hawaiian. I'm a quarter. Anyway, there was a announcement, whatever, in the hospital. Physician wanted for the English coast of the island of Hawaii. Now you have to remember this is in 1929. The coastline from Kohala down to Ka'u, for the most part, was colonized by English. They had been colonizing continuing to colonize New Zealand all through the mid to latter 1800s, and ran into a 12-year drought in New Zealand. So they didn't want to go there anymore. They went to Indonesia, fought the Dutch, continued to colonize Hong Kong, went up the Pacific coast of the United States and founded British Columbia. And did I turn something on?
A little closer to your side.
Okay. And a mess of them went to Fiji and were promptly eaten. But a lot of them came here to this island, to these islands, became subjects of the crown, and asked for the right to acquire land. Kamehameha's third, fourth, and fifth sold them the barren coasts of West Hawaii. Unlike the Americans, the Americans stole theirs. Anyway, back to the English. My mother and father, at the time, were just engaged. They weren't married yet. She was still working for the princess. But they came here and spent a week in the Kona Inn. It had just opened the year before, in 1928. And the boat only came to Kona back and forth once a week. And they decided to spend another week. They liked Kona, meeting all the families and whatnot. And the clincher was when my father met C.Q. Yeehaw, who had a core mill way down in South Kona, because my father spoke Puntisi Ap Hakka in Mandarin. And he gets down there, and CQ speaks Hakka, perfect. His neighbor, the lady Ah Fong Magoon, only spoke Mandarin. Both of them, one pure Chinese, one part Chinese, couldn't speak to each other. So my father had to be the interpreter. But that's beyond that. Growing up here in Kona was quite something. For instance, our beach house was where the banyan tree that was poisoned and banyan surf was under that tree. The road from Kailua to Keauhou was gravel. High tide was underwater. So sometimes we were stuck at the beach house with the maid that couldn't boil water. Our summers here in Kona were based on the coffee schedule. We started summer in August and went August, September, October. My father died a few days before his 50th birthday in 1953. My mother then had to go to work because she had one son in college, one get in boarding school ready to go to college, and my younger brother and myself, a couple of years away from boarding school. So she's running around. She's started the first nursery, first flower shop, first plant rental business and was the first landscape contractor on this side of the island. Of interest, the only other landscape contractor on the island was a woman in Hilo. My brother and I were like 7 and 9 or something like that. And my mother was looking for somebody to babysit us, besides the maids. My godmother, who lived at Mauna Ihi, quite a historic house down the road, about 2.5 miles north of the village of Holualoa, was retiring from the territorial school system. And she put Mauna Ihi up in the 100 acres that went with it up for sale. And along comes the princess Liliuokalani Kavana Nakoa Morris, whose daughter my mother had been taking care of in Honolulu, raising with her grandmother. Auntie Baby, as she asked us to call her, said to my mother, "Oh, we'll take them," especially when Auntie Baby found out that she and I were both born at 1:30 in the afternoon on the same day, 32 years apart. So I became Auntie Baby's pet. She would send every morning the Cadillac limousine with Ringy the chauffeur along the Mamaloha Highway up our driveway, and it was, I don't know how he turned the thing around, but he did. And we'd get in and drive us all the way back to Mauna Ihi. Now, if any of you know that road, you could not get up that road from north. You had to go all the way almost to Holualoa to turn the car around, come back, and go up this steep road, 47 stairs from the bottom up to the lanai. We'd get out and, play, whatever, and we had a chore. And this is the gist of the summer of 1955. The entire August, September, and October, we were driven by Ringy down the road to Mauna Ihi for one thing. Auntie Baby raised Cornish hens, and she had all these coops in the backyard. Every coop had a radio in it, and we had to run from coop to coop to change the station so there were never any commercials. That took up the whole summer of 55. What was really funny was she read every book on how to raise a Cornish hen. It's supposed to be so big. These things were bigger than turkeys when they were finished. And we blamed it on the music. It was fun with the princess. She'd come up with crazy things to entertain us and all. And then I think it was the next year, 56. She says to my mother, "Sadie, I'm taking the kids. We're going down to Paniao. Winona and Francis are there." Now, Winona and Francis were Francis E. Brown and Winona Love. Now, they owned fish ponds, which are now the Maunalani Resort. Have I run over time? No. Okay. We would, Auntie Baby had talked to her good friend, Auntie Annabelle Ruddle from Hilo, who owned Paniao, a home at the end of Puako Beach Road. And Auntie Annabelle said, "Well, you can't have it during summer, regular summer." She said, "Oh, no, this is Kona summer." Fine, because the kids and grandkids were all there. And then when they all went back to school, there was 1 week of the nuns from Hilo just to clean the place up. And then it was available. So we went in right after the nuns, and those ladies destroyed everything the nuns did good. We had the great collection of lushes from the west coast of this island at Paniao and at Kalahuipua. And my kid brother and I were the bartenders. We knew what everybody drank and how they liked it. That was our job. There. The fun part was one night dinner was at Kalahuipua. Then the next night it was at Paniao. Now for us at Paniao, to get to Kalahuipua, we had to go by jeep through ponds. There were no roads. How Uncle Francis and Auntie Winona drove their cars, or their chauffeurs drove them. Whenever they came to this island, they would ship to Hilo a Cadillac limousine and a Lincoln Continental Mark I. That was Auntie Winona's car. And they would go to parties in their own cars. They would drive them all the way around the island, down through the gravel roads, all the way through the water, right to the fish ponds. And, you know, we look at this and we're going, wow. And Auntie Baby would not take her Cadillac through. We had to get the Jeep, but we had to tie all these women in. Because by the time it was time to go for cocktails, they were ripped. And then we had to untie them at the other end. But, oh, the tales I could tell you about those. One of my favorite memories of having cocktails and dinner at Uncle Francis Brown's was he had a one-eyed man who lived there all the time. And he would go out on the faces of on the ocean where there are lava faces where I think it's called black sand running out. Okay. Black Sand's one of the communities in Maunalani, or Mauna Kea, one of Maunalani is. And it's sheer cliff. He would come in with opihis that were 4 and 5 inches across. And for pupus, these were put in the charcoal and bourbon was poured on them. Oh, yeah. And then they were taken out like just barely sauteed abalone and thinly sliced, and we were, oh, yeah. And over at our side, when they'd come over, if it was moonlight night, which it happened to be the one week, Atai, Auntie Annabelle's chef was left for the princess. She was 6 feet tall, 3 hairs on her head, and a cleaver permanently attached to her hip. She'd come and wake us up at 3 in the morning, 2 o'clock, and us kids, and take us out with scoop nets. Because out in the tidal pools, the very shallow, in the moonlight, were all these baby oo-oo. You see them in the market as mimpachi, the red fish. But these were only babies this big. And we had to catch them all. And she'd put them in this pot that's hauna, just smell to high heaven. Probably hamha and all kinds of Chinese things. And then she'd put us back to sleep. That afternoon, they were dunked in, what was it? Beer and cornstarch. And not dropped, but thrown into a wok of boiling oil, and they'd explode, and she'd take them right out, and they melted in your mouth, bones and all. Those are my memories of 1956.